right? Everybody needs to know about unconditional love. Everybody needs to know about personal responsibility. Everybody needs to know about excellence. Everybody needs to know about these things. They need to know how to get unconditional love. They need to know the source of that unconditional love. They need to know the power and authority they have and they've been given by God through personal responsibility. They need to know the power of excellence. Like, everybody needs this message, but I'll be honest, not everybody may want it simply because I say God and not universe or energy or infinite intelligence or the metaphysical or whatever. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the FCS Prep Podcast, where I'm your host, Dr. Keith Fairclough, and we are back after this long hiatus where I was just really getting my mind together, making sure that I was putting out the right content, making sure that I was being authentic, making sure that I was on the right path, doing the right thing, really just making sure of all that, right? So a lot of, not soul searching, but really just thinking about the content and what I want to bring and how I want to bring it and how do I want to approach it. And I think it's the biggest question is, was I being authentic? And so that's kind of what the topic of this podcast is about. You already seen the title. It's called The Source. But again, before we get any further, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share with anyone who you know could benefit from this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. The Source. What am I talking about? I just got finished reading a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. The whole premise of the book is he's supposed to be having this conversation with the devil, and the devil, somehow he restrained the devil and got him to kind of give up all of his secrets. As you go through it, you realize that really it's not really the devil, because it's really just another form of him in his mind, right? Just how he thinks or whatnot. So whatever. That's not the purpose of this conversation. That's not the topic of this conversation. The topic of this conversation, the source, is where do I get all this stuff from? Like, where do I get these ideas from? Where do I get these podcasts from? Where these premises come from? Honestly, they come from God. No, the podcast is not turning into a church service or anything like that. It's not going to be preaching or anything along those lines. No, I just got to be real with you all. I just got to be forward with you all. And I got to be authentic as well. One of the things is, when I was doing the last podcast, Pregame Your Day, and I was talking about prayer, I think I said something in there where I was like, you could pray to God or whoever you pray to or whatever energy. And I'm like, and honestly, after I did that and posted it and listened to it, I kind of cringed on the inside. I was like, that's not what you believe. You don't believe in infinite intelligence. You don't believe in the universe or energy. Yeah, you know that's just all euphemism, people trying to get around the idea of God. And so that's not what you believe in. And so it was eating me up. And I was on my prayer walks, and it just came to me. It was like, bro, you gotta be authentic. You just gotta come with it and just be real, and just like all of you, like whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, like you gotta come with it. You know, and I had a conversation with my wife, and you know, and I was having a conversation with her, we were talking, and I was just real. I was like, dang, like I need that for my podcast. I need that for the people that I'm supposed to be reaching. Like, I need to be all in for those people. And so I got to thinking, I was like, dang, you know, what am I missing? What am I doing? Like what's going on? And I got to realize, it was like, bro, you're trying to relay this message that you got from God, these tactics, these strategies, all these things that you got from God, you're trying to relate it without God. Like, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. And so I had to just really had to come to Jesus moment myself, where it's like, bro, I'm not living out what I'm telling these people that they need to live out. I'm not living a life of invulnerability. Like, I'm not doing that because I'm out here not intentionally trying to hide, but I guess trying to placate the masses and be like, oh, well, this message is for everybody. And the message is for everybody. Now, be honest, this message is for everybody, right? Everybody needs to know about unconditional love. Everybody needs to know about personal responsibility. Everybody needs to know about excellence. Everybody needs to know about these things. They need to know how to get unconditional love. They need to know the source of that unconditional love. They need to know the power and authority they have and they've been given by God through personal responsibility. They need to know the power of excellence. Like, everybody needs this message, but I'll be honest, not everybody may want it simply because I say God and not universe or energy or infinite intelligence or the metaphysical or whatever. And you know what? That's okay. You know, I have to be comfortable with that. And honestly, and y'all too. Like, y'all got to be comfortable with that. This whole, like, when I talk about being invulnerable, one of the biggest things was being ourselves and being comfortable with the fact that people are not going to like it. People are going to exit stage left in our lives because we're being ourselves. But there's no way I could truly go another podcast further without just stating the truth, stating the fact, being myself. There's no way I could have done it. Absolutely no way. I just had to just come forward and just talk about this and get this off my chest and off my mind and off my heart and in here, and just to let people know that you're going to be hearing more about God in the upcoming podcast and all the way down the road, right? Again, not talking about preaching, but one of the issues is that in people's that we try to regulate God to a religion or put him in this box, this church box. Like we got to put him over here and he has no influence anywhere else. And I'm like, bro, that's not even how it works. That's not how God works at all. Like he permeates every single part of our lives. Every single part. He permeates our mind, our heart, our body, our marriage, with our kids as parents, our job, our relationships, our society, every single part. He permeates that. You can't just take him and put him in a box. You know what the crazy part is? You can't do that with the way we believe. Our beliefs, we don't put our beliefs in a box. Well, I only believe this in this area over here. No, our beliefs, and we talked about this in other podcasts, our beliefs color everything we do. Every situation we encounter is colored and influenced by our beliefs, which generate our thoughts, which then generate our feelings and emotions, and then generates our actions. You cannot put these things in a box. We cannot put God in a box. I cannot put him in a box. I will not put him in a box. Not for what we're trying to do, not for where we're trying to go, not for the lives we're trying to change and the people we're trying to help. I can't do it. I cannot be disingenuous. I have to be authentic in order to give you all exactly what I'm supposed to give you. I have to be authentic. You know, the crazy part is I've done so many studies. I've watched so many videos. I've read so many books. I've listened to so many gurus. I've done throughout the ages. Listen to them all. And you know what? It all comes back to God. The Bible says that God is love. That's what the Bible says. And I hear some of these like big people. So for instance, like Tony Robbins, he said, if there was one thing that if he had the power to do and change in this world, it would be to make everybody love one another, right? If God is love and he's saying he wants everyone to give love to one another, it's almost like he's saying, I want everyone to give God to one another, treat each other right, treat each other kind, right? Help one another out, lift one another up, encourage one another, build one another up. If you're not the one succeeding, but you see someone else, clap while they're succeeding. And then on top of that, he goes on in other messages, and you could find it on YouTube. I'm not going to put it here, but you find it in other places where he's talking about God. Now, granted, he says like he or she or something like that. I'm like, okay. But again, that's him. The idea is that it comes back to God. Dr. Eric Thomas, a massive influence in my life. When he speaks about God. You know, I'm not talking about when he preaches. I'm talking about like when he's talking at corporate, right? When he's talking, he's saying, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning talking to my father, and he's giving me this message for you. Like they're saying it, like it all comes back to that, you know, and you can go through and you know what really just kind of brought it home for me today, because this wasn't really the topic of discussion today. The topic of discussion was supposed to be about excellence, which I will come back, and I've been building that bad boy out for about 2 or 3 weeks now, so that one's going to be incredible. I was watching a podcast today. It was something like Lens Podcast Picks or whatever the case may be, and it was Andrew Huberman, and he's this big time neuroscientist at Stanford, right? And Stanford's a big university, and this guy, he knows his stuff. He knows all the stuff about the brain, how it operates, how thoughts can contribute, like all these things like that. And it just so happened I caught this podcast today, and the name of the podcast was like basically the power of prayer, and him talking about, he put a lot of things like, oh, I'm not trying to push anybody, my religion on anybody, my faith on anybody, or anything like that. He said a lot of that, but the long story short was he said, I pray because I know there's something bigger than me. I know it gives me a peace to be able to release that, whatever I'm struggling with, whatever I can't control, to release that to him because I can't do anything with it. And at some of the most difficult times of my life, I've gone to him and prayed, and he's given me an answer. And so I say, why do I say all this to say? This guy's huge in his field, in neuroscience, physical bench top science, man, big in his field. He knows about the brain, he knows about meditation, he knows about all that stuff like that. And it comes back to God. Why? Because he's the source. Like I said before, I've done so much research and read so many books, stay studying the Bible. And I keep thinking like, dang, that principle's in this book's in the Bible, that principle's in the Bible, this principle's in the Bible, that principle's in the Bible, this one, that one, this one. And I'm not talking about all from the same person, right? So I'm not talking about the only person I studied was Dr. Eric Thomas. Like, no, I've read tons of books with tons of different people who may or may not be Christians. Some don't even believe in God. How is it possible they're all pulling the same principles from line up in the Bible. You know, you may say, well, you know, because they studied under this person and that person, this and that. That's all well and good. If I'm looking at the Bible as a source, right? If we're looking at God as the source, and his word is just like a manuscript of how we communicate with him, how he communicates with us, and things that happen and whatnot, what he wants us to do, and it has the path of success in there, and then all these people out here, whether they're believers or not, are all their topics and things that are lining up with that, then it just stands to reason that he's the source, that God is the source. So why duck it? Why, you know, because we're afraid what people are going to think or say? Maybe. But guys, we're supposed to be on the path to invulnerability. Like, that's how we change things, like by becoming invulnerable. In order to do that, we have to just speak up and say, hey, this is what it is, period. And again, some people may not agree. Some people may be like, you know what, hey, that ain't for me. That's fine. But I'm going to tell you this right now. No matter who you go to, no matter what guru you go to or anything like that, I can guarantee whatever principles they have to improve your life, to improve your money, to improve your relationship, to improve your society, whatever principles, I can almost guarantee with 100% accuracy that it comes from God. All right, so let's just say, everybody, like I said, I'm not going to put God in a box. I'm not going to regulate him to a time on Saturday or a time on Sunday or just some time in the morning. I refuse to do it. I can't do it. It's not fair to God. It's not fair to me. And it's definitely not fair to the people who are being served by these messages. And again, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be a church service. That's not what the purpose of this podcast is, right? This podcast is about real change right now. That's what this podcast is about. I'm just letting you all know, just from here on out, if you hear more about God, if you see scriptures in there, whatever the case may be, I'm just giving you guys notice that this is what's going to happen from now on, because that's just who I am. It's part of who I am. God's part of who I am. And I got to be honest and forward and with all of you. I love you guys. Listen, like I said, I got the Excellence series coming up. It's going to be great. Just going through what excellence is. That's the first thing we're going to talk about, what excellence is, and just drilling that point home, because I think it's really important for us to understand what excellence is and also what excellence is not, because excellence is the last part of all these pillars, right? So we talked about unconditional love, and of course, I'm not done, right? Haven't exhausted unconditional love. We have not exhausted personal responsibility, but I did want to give some time and energy and effort to excellence, because we have not touched on excellence at all. We've touched on the other two, unconditional love, extensively, but we really need to start talking about excellence, because excellence is where we really start getting stuff done. So we really start seeing change happen in our lives, in our relationships, in our communities, in our schools, in our jobs. That's when we start really seeing things happen, and really when you start standing out above the crowd. We're going to get into that next time, but until then, guys, remember, like, comment, subscribe, share. I love you guys. I want to be real with you guys. Y'all been just always showing up, subscribing and whatnot, so I appreciate you all, and I want to be real with you all and give you as much of myself as I possibly can, short of me hopping through the camera and just jumping into your living room or jumping into your car. Hopefully not jumping into any places where I shouldn't be jumping into, but I want to give you as much as me as possible. All right, so y'all take care, have a great, awesome, and blessed day, and I'll see you all soon.